outweighed the legislator who is trying to either get reforms or do something different than what they want. They just outweighed them, and because they know they're going to be gone in a few years, the legislator's term limited. So as long as we put it together where we term limit both groups, I'm fine with it.
Well, what about smaller government? How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think we ought to shrink the government, and I don't think there's any question about that. And part of it is, I think that we need to take a look, start in the House. There's a lot of things. I got surprised. Not Larry Sabato, which is a blogger who generally is a Democrat, although he sometimes attacks both sides. He brought up the issue of my opponent, Mr. Boucher, buying a car with his campaign funds. He spent $29,000 roughly to buy a campaign car. And it's perfectly legal. Don't want anybody to think I'm accusing him of doing something illegal, because I'm not. But it's questionable. Well, the response to that, and I did not know this, is that, well, I didn't get a car through the House. I could have leased one through the House at taxpayer expense. $173,000, or if my proposal goes through, $155,000 a year, I believe they'll buy their own car. And I can't believe that any congressman's getting a car on top of that salary. You talk about a six-figure salary. That gentleman in the back who was concerned about that, they're apparently also entitled to get. I checked into it, and one of the congressmen said, yeah, there's not a lot of them doing it, but you can. Well, why are we doing that? That does not make any sense to me. So I think that we need to eliminate that. I mean, we need to start there. But there are a lot of places where we can look at, just doing common sense things, like why would a congressman not be able to buy his own car? You do a lot of common sense things, you can cut the government back. And I could probably go on for hours, or we all could go on for hours about things we've heard about that, just don't make any sense.
Joe?
I don't know if you can hear me, Congressman. Considering that a major portion of the spending, proposed deficits, proposed debts we're creating in Washington now are a result of the inability to change the gridlock between lenders and borrowers, who created assets several years ago built on inflated prices, not values. The substance is not there. What we really need to do, and what you need to do if you get to Congress, is to convince the people that are doing the regulating, foreclosures, and all the rest of these proposed settlements, is that we don't need bailouts from Washington, but we need the people who made these agreements in the first place, based on inflated prices, not values, get together and resolve their own problems. Keep the government out of it. It can be done. It's been done in the past. Foreclosure is not a dirty word. And the people who foreclose do it because they can't get any other solution. It's easier not to foreclose. Get an agreement with the guy that you loan the money to. But we're stopping that. The government is stopping that. And what we need to do if you want to turn the economy around is do what you can in Congress to get these people to just tell them you're not going to help them. Agree among yourselves to go back where the value belongs, not where the prices were inflated to.
All right.
How do you feel about that? You got a chance
I
to do it?
think I certainly will look into that and will come to you for advice on that.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. St. Lawrence.
David St. Lawrence, good having you here. This is a little bit off the line of what we've been doing here, but you've been talking about government being involved, the federal government being involved in a lot of other things. I was really surprised to find out that one of our problems with like local and other schools, we're adding administrators and not teachers. So we're putting more and more money, being forced to put more money in schools because of these government mandates. Federal mandates that certain things will be done at a level, in other words, where the federal government is actually running the educational system. How do you feel about turning this around, and what do you think can be done?
The federal government many years ago started down this path, and what they did was they didn't make you do it. They just said you don't get the money if you don't do it, and that's how they got around the Constitution on a lot of these different programs. And what you have to look at is you have to look from a federal perspective. I've been there and borne the brunt of it at the state level. From a federal perspective, what we have to do is we have to start saying, okay, look, we're not going to do this as a mandate. If we want to help the school systems out, let the states figure out what they want. If we want to do something, we have to take a look at it, but we can't be doing the mandates, particularly because what then happens is federal government comes along later and pulls the money out, and the state and local government then has to figure out what they've got to do in order to continue to satisfy the public that they're putting the sufficient funds into education. I don't know if that helps you.
Let me get the gentleman way back in the back of the room there.
Floyd. I wanted to ask you about Fannie and Freddie.
Amen.
And, that's been a big part of the downfall of our economy, is what's going on in the housing market. And Congress has allowed Fannie and Freddie to exist all through the years, and the government control and the giving of mortgages to people that can't pay the mortgage, giving, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. Do you feel like you should, change that Fannie and Freddie, or get rid of it?
It's interesting, I think we clearly have to change it. Now the question is, should we get rid of it? Obviously, Congress set up a system where they were encouraging Fannie and Freddie to lend money, and all sorts of institutions to lend money that probably weren't creditworthy. And it's unfortunate because you want everybody, to have the American dream and have a house, but we pretty much gave a death knell to the, or certainly a wound to the economy by doing so. Now, should the federal government be involved in mortgage lending at all? I haven't thought that one through. I would have to say that I'd have to give that some serious consideration and get back to you on it. If you'll make sure that I get a name, Marty, would you make sure you get a name and address, and we'll have to think that one through.
As you know, the Tea Party, government control
I know.
is one of the biggest problems we have, is the federal control over
Is the
our
government
lives.
constantly moving into areas that they don't have any business being in,
That's
and I
just
don't
one man.
disagree. But I haven't studied that closely, and I hate to make a statement tonight and say something that I, after reviewing it, would feel differently about, so that's why I want to take a look at it.
Al?
My question gets back to education. My name is Al Pierce, by the way. Ever since the Department of Education was founded to improve education, the statistics show that the education level of our kids have gone down, not up.
Right.
We need to get rid of the Department of Education and let the states run it.
Right.
Well, there's no question that the states ought to be in control predominantly. It's one of the things that we in the House of Delegates felt strongly about. We passed new standards long before the federal government got into the standards business. It's kind of interesting. We passed our standards of learning, I want to say about 95. Then the governor of Texas picked it up, and it worked pretty good in Texas. And then he got to Washington as the president, that would be Bush, and decided he wanted to create national standards. I'm not sure that program is serving us as well as it ought to. Our standards program already had test scores going up before we had the overlay of No Child Left Behind. And while there may be some good things in there, I think the states should definitely be in control of that. I am not at this point tonight ready to say that I want to completely eliminate the Department of Education, but certainly I think that the states ought to be setting the standards.
Okay, Greg?
Which enumerated power in Article 1, Section 8 grants the federal government authority
Do education.
to do education, to loan money for mortgages? Which one is it?
That's why the suggestion that we have that laid out first would be better. Now we're dealing with agencies that are in place. I can't tell you which it is. I do know that they started down that path, and they basically said to the states, if you want your money back, you've got to follow our rules.
Would you agree with Thomas Jefferson that when the federal government does things that it's not allowed to do, that it's the states and the people's right to not participate?
That is certainly a part of the social contract. And I do agree with the social contract.